Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. This will be my full Daredevil Born Again Season 2 Episode 6 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, WTF moments, and Defenders coming back, so we will break it all down. Probably one of the biggest surprises of the episode was how much Defenders story they have moved things forward since they started bringing them all back, starting with Jessica Jones. So welcome back, Jessica Jones first and everybody else behind her. Mike Coulter doing his best to join the spoiler bros, also telling us about the other Defenders coming back too relatively soon. The title of the episode is Requiem, which is mostly a reference to Vanessa because they have her wake during this episode. You could also look at it as a requiem towards Foggy too, because we get all the extra Foggy flashbacks. The episode starts with Kingpin sitting over Vanessa's body crying. This is meant to be right after the end of last week's episode, right after she passed away. When the surgeon comes in to comfort him, saying a prayer, very Catholic of him, Matt Murdock would approve. They that love beyond the world cannot be separated by it. Death cannot kill what never dies. And in the context of the moment, he's mostly referring to Kingpin's love for Vanessa. Her death will not separate them because she will always be in his heart and in his mind. She will metaphorically live on in that form. However, in the Marvel Universe, they have already explained in detail how death actually works, like it's a real thing. When anybody dies, no matter how powerful they are, their consciousness travels to another plane of existence based on your belief system or contracts that you might have made with higher beings like gods. This is why characters like Mark Spector go to the Egyptian Duat even though he didn't worship those gods because he made a contract to become Khonshu's avatar. This is also why Jane Foster went to Valhalla even though she is not Asgardian, she was Lady Thor, she made the contract with Mjolnir with Thor's hammer. I don't know if Vanessa was particularly religious, Catholic, or believed in any kind of god, or if Kingpin believes in any religions either. I'm assuming probably not. There's that brief moment where the doctor offers him a hug, he takes it, and it meant to show you how he has gone back to full Kingpin, and I love the way they sort of slide into this moment slowly, like you kind of know what's going to happen as he starts to hug him, like Kingpin does not hug people. That is unless he intends to crush them in a bear hug, which is basically what he does here, so R.I.P. Doctor. He seemed like he was a very good doctor. The whole idea here is that the minute Vanessa died, Kingpin's soul died with him. Like he had this giant hole inside of him that she basically filled that is no longer there anymore. The governor also references this later, like, oh, she was the only thing that was tying him to humanity. Now it's going to be all chaos. We need to get rid of him. He has Buck clean up the body, not another one for Daniel Blake to help out with because it's his birthday, not going to make Daniel Blake bury another body on his birthday. He has her funeral a short time jump later. Love the way they also framed the shot with him being the only one in white with everyone else in black, also to show you how alone he is now. White is also meant to be an ironic juxtapose with Daredevil's black suit as like two sides of good and evil with their colors switched. Daredevil also does have a white suit, but we will see if they ever have him wear it in the MCU. While this is happening, he and Karen Page monitor Bullseye's body after last week's episode, who is still unconscious. We also see Mr. Charles again finally resurfaces now that the warehouse where Kingpin stashed all the weapons is completely empty, putting Kingpin on his shit list, the CIA and Val's shit list. The CIA is a very powerful enemy, so now they are basically doing their best to get rid of Kingpin as well too, in addition to Daredevil. We're having a bit of a three-way Mexican standoff with Val, Mr. Charles, Kingpin, and Daredevil. We see the task force then set up their own Indiana Jones warehouse, making it seem like Kingpin plans to use the weapons on all the vigilantes and superheroes in New York City, like he's going to use the weapons himself on everybody inside the city.
Thank you, Mayor Fisk.
Open season on Daredevil, the Defenders, Spider-Man, Punisher, any other superheroes, or even just regular people that Fisk wants to get rid of, but mostly the superheroes. Then we finally see what Jessica Jones has been up to for the past 7 years. It's been 7 years since the end of Jessica Jones, since the series got canceled, end of season 3 of her show. And she and Luke Cage have definitely made up, they definitely got busy, because this is Daniela Cage, their daughter from the comics. She's named Daniela after Daniel Rand, aka Iron Fist, who is her godfather. Meaning that we might have also gotten some Luke Cage Iron Fist Heroes for Hire in those 7 years at some point too. They're all coming back during Season 3, so they will probably address that more during Season 3. And there are a couple Jessica Jones storylines that set like a couple subplots for her character that they'll probably spill into Season 3 with the way her powers are on the fritz. Love the way they play this whole sequence for a complete joke, with Daniela playing with the gas charge while Jessica Jones destroys what is not the task force, but actually we find out the CIA outside. We'll talk about that in a second too. But they use this moment to remind you that Daniela inherited both Luke Cage's powers and Jessica Jones' powers combined, so she's super strong and has indestructible skin, so she was never in any danger, like the charge would not have hurt her, which Jessica Jones kind of winks at when she says, it's not a toy, but in the hands of her, technically it is a kind of a toy. Later, Jessica tells Matt the reason why they showed up at her house is because the CIA a while ago called her trying to get her to do black ops for them along with Luke Cage, and they were looking for any superpowered individuals, superheroes, or supervillains too. And this is meant to be a comp back to Val in the Thunderbolts movie. Remember what she was doing with all the different members of the Thunderbolts, having them do all kinds of black ops. It's very compartmentalized, so they weren't an actual team. She just hired a whole bunch of vigilantes, people with superpowers or abilities, to do whatever she needed doing across the world. Now the idea is that after the Thunderbolts movie, and this does take place after the events of the Thunderbolts movie, because they have turned into the new Avengers, Val can't have them doing all these black ops anymore because the spotlight is on them way too much, so she needs to find other superpowered individuals to replace what the Thunderbolts were doing for her originally, like the really shady stuff. Naturally, Jessica Jones says she told them to take a hike, don't call her again, so they're probably coming after her to try and clean up after them so that she doesn't try to inform on them, or if they have been able to capture her and Daniela, Val would have just forced her to work for the CIA, or they would have done something bad to Daniela. But if it wasn't clear, that is her house with Luke Cage. He just happens to not be there when this is going down, so like they live together. My assumption is that the house is somewhere on Long Island somewhere, like it's somewhere just outside of the city. Then we find out that Soledad and Angela came to help with Bullseye's injuries and Matt's. They catch them up on what happened with Vanessa's funeral, how Fisk has cracked down on everyone, the task force is after anyone has ever thought about putting a costume on to fight or commit crimes. Karen Page's source that she mentions with the Red Hook port is BB, setting up the whole BB subplot in the episode with Daniel Blake and Buck over on the side in her life, reminding you about the hard drive of files that they're going to try and use to indict Kingpin in court eventually. When she says the resistance grows every day, the line is meant to be a reference to all the people wearing Daredevil masks and protesting in the red clothing outside City Hall later in the episode. Basically all of Daredevil's supporters amongst the people of New York City who view him as a resistance hero against Kingpin, wanting him out of office. You also notice in the light of day here too, Matt's black suit paint is peeling, so each episode more and more of the red is showing beneath it. I think meant to be a metaphor for how he's slowly being restored, like his soul is slowly being restored after losing Foggy and hitting his lowest point. Like he is slowly becoming more classic Daredevil again and again. But while he seems like he's getting better episode to episode, Karen Page seems like she's getting worse and worse, slipping more and more into full Punisher mode. Make all the Punisher jokes you want because of their little three-way ship they have going on.
Tell you what I think.
I'll tell you why.
Let me tell you something.
Karen Page tries to argue with him about whether or not killing people is actually necessary, saying that she stands behind her decision to kill Wesley during the original Netflix series. It's one of the reasons why Kingpin also hates her so much. She also thinks in retrospect she was wrong to tell him not to kill Kingpin when he originally had the chance, even as Matt seems like he's gone even further into his no-kill rule. They kind of dealt with this in last week's episode where his penance was Bullseye surviving. Like the idea is that God maybe did help Daredevil in that moment because Bullseye survived, so his death isn't on Daredevil's hands. So the idea is that Bullseye surviving is now Matt's metaphor for redemption, and he thinks that Karen Page wants to kill Bullseye, which she does kind of try to do later in this episode. She's mostly worried that if Matt doesn't kill Bullseye or Kingpin, they'll ultimately just come back again and again, and they'll never stop until they eventually kill Daredevil. Which later in the episode, Kingpin kind of tells Daredevil to his face when they're duking it out. When he says vengeance isn't justice, that also feels like a bit of a Batman joke. Like Batman would be upset. Vengeance is his whole thing. And while it leaves Bullseye in the not-so-caring, loving hands of Karen Page, who really wants to kill him, Kingpin has a wake for Vanessa where everybody around him is kind of tiptoeing and afraid about what he's going to do next. The governor talks to Sheila about running for mayor and that she can appoint her mayor without having an election. Like, oh, you don't even need to run. We can actually make you mayor pretty easily. all because she's worried the Kingpin will now be uncontrollable now that Vanessa is dead. She was the only thing that was kind of tying him to his humanity. So at least in the governor's mind, I think the idea is that she wants to use her power, which she can politically, to pull Kingpin out of office and appoint Sheila interim mayor at least. Also, it kind of seems like she's the one that's handing Spider-Man the key to the city in the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer, so maybe she does become mayor, at least temporarily. One of her aides also conveniently tells Buck that he's next in line for her office after she's done, like her term is over, like he's trying to drum up more support for his candidacy. And Buck's line all about the Queen of England keeping her crown until she dies is meant to be a reference to the British royal succession and the idea that maybe Buck is just going to kill the governor and he could become the next governor way faster. Earlier this season, they actually made it seem like it'd be way harder for Kingpin to kill the governor because she was so powerful politically, it'd be just harder to cover up. But at least at this point in the season, it seems like he doesn't care about any of those problems anymore. So the governor really is under threat. They start to set up the whole Daniel Blake BB subplot with Buck pulling him aside, getting him to try and find out whether or not she's the mole using the barium test, a tactic used to offer something that will reveal her as the mole by basically feeding her false info, which she doesn't totally fall for, but he still kind of figures out by the end of the episode anyway. Probably the biggest surprise with their subplot was that Daniel Blake seemed like at no point he was willing to or wanted to even try killing her, and he's mostly just worried that Buck is going to kill her because Buck seems like he's figured out that she is the mole. But I think the idea with their whole storyline, the way they leave it when he calls her out at the end of the episode, like, what's up with this hard drive I found on you? What's on this? A whole bunch of information that I told you not to steal? When he says he won't be able to protect her from Buck, showing her the phone call from Buck, I think that's basically where we're headed the last couple of episodes with the two of them, where he will ultimately we will see if he's successful in protecting her against Buck.
And the big time will take care of you.
There are a number of people that are wearing plot armor this season that we know will return in Season 3. Buck is not one of them. Buck could be on the death predictions list pretty high, so you can let me know if you do think that something will eventually cause him to die. I don't think that Daniel Blake will be able to kill him, but maybe something will lead to his death. Mr. Charles then has it out with Kingpin over the stolen weapons. When he says everyone loses situation, he means that it's going to be a scorched earth situation, like the CIA loses the weapons, hurting their operation in Jar and Pur overseas, and the Kingpin will lose when the CIA hires people to go after Kingpin to get rid of him in retaliation, as he tells the governor later, I can fix your city hall problem. When he mentions Kabul 2021 in an Abbey Gate situation, that's a reference to Kabul falling to the Taliban in the year 2021 with an attack at Abbey Gate specifically, like it was a real-world thing that actually happened. You remember he's part of the CIA. The CIA would have been involved in that because the CIA is mostly focused on foreign threats, not domestic threats inside the United States. So Mr. Charles is basically saying Kingpin is about to go full Taliban on New York City, turning it into a war zone shortly with all the weapons that he stole from them. But he is definitely on the CIA and Val's shit list now, so they'll be coming for him in addition to Daredevil coming for him. Either way you can see the descent by the end of the episode, Kingpin will no longer be mayor by the events of Season 3. That's why they're kind of moving on to a completely separate plot with all the Defenders characters. So the early prediction is the Kingpin is still loosely involved in the events of Season 3, but he's not like the main focus, the main villain of Season 3. Then we get our Daredevil Jessica Jones team up. It's been so long since the Defenders, like it's been a long time since they've actually fought together. Also love the way that he clocks her from a distance because he can hear the sound of her boots, like, oh, you sound like Jessica Jones. After she explains all the trouble she had with Val's goons, with Daniela Cage, her daughter with Luke Cage, and how Val wanted them to run more black ops for them, they basically go after the new weapons, the Indiana Jones warehouse the Kingpin just set up, and have a great time just mowing through all the task force. She also sets up the idea that her powers have been on the fritz since Daniela was born. Sometimes they don't work, so this is probably something that they'll continue to address during Season 3, and I think, to make all the jokes possible, it's probably a Tobey Maguire-style web block situation with an existential crisis that she'll just work through during Season 3, because she was not prepared to be a mother. Like, it's just like one of these big frontiers that she's crossing here, so a lot of maturation going on. Then if it's been a minute since you watched the Jessica Jones Netflix series or you never watched it or the Defenders series, she doesn't have the impenetrable skin that Luke Cage has. She's just super strong, so the bullets can still hurt her, which is why she keeps ducking the bullets. But also continuing this whole thread about her powers being on the fritz, they skits out when she's fighting Powell and he almost gets her dead to rights till Daredevil saves her. So this is meant to show you that this will probably happen again before the end of the season, and maybe again at the beginning of Daredevil Born Again Season 3. Mostly it seems like the weapons here are destroyed in the explosion or mostly destroyed, so like the threat of the weapons isn't nearly as great as it was before. We get a really weird moment with Heather Glenn and Buck at the mayoral mansion at Fisk's mansion where he's been living with Vanessa. She takes a piece of her red jewelry, which she might wind up wearing later when she goes full Lady Muse, but that's kind of what they're implying here in this moment, where she kind of slips deeper into this Lady Muse persona. She has another hallucination after she steals the jewelry, then bonds with Buck in the weirdest way possible, like really kinky here, but no kink shaming. They're kind of like Team Evil. They give him a little bit of a moment. I think there were some people that were shipping them earlier this season, just like two really terrible people getting together maybe. She tells him about Muse and then flashes back to it while they engage in a little light play. Buck even seems like he enjoys it just a little bit too. Heather Glenn on her side of things, though, definitely does not enjoy this. It just seems like it makes things worse for her. You can let me know if you think that she actually does ultimately wind up killing someone in next week's episode or the finale. Like, will they wait for the finale to have her go full Lady Muse? Karen Page then has it out with Bullseye, who she's handcuffed to the bed. Seems like she's very ready to shoot him at the drop of a hat. Like, please give me an excuse to shoot you, which he kind of does. He mentions Foggy again. He reminds her that Vanessa made him do it in exchange for his freedom, basically trying to gas her up into killing him, which he thanks her for because he kind of wants to die, which is what happened in last week's episode too. He told Matt, please leave me to die. Let me die. Kill me now yourself if you want. She has a series of flashbacks. We get more Foggy this season. Foggy inside their original office at the beginning of the Netflix series after they got her out of jail, like very early on in the Netflix series. Then the new napkin from the end of the Netflix season 3, Nelson Murdoch and Page, and his body bleeding out. Daredevil returns, not leaving this to chance, knocks the gun out of her hand. She makes it sound like she really was going to shoot him though. Like, oh, come on, how come you couldn't let me shoot him? Goes into full Punisher mode again and is pissed that all the best people, all the people close to them that they love, seemingly die while all the worst people survive. This is also meant to be a parallel to Kingpin's fight with Daredevil at the end of the episode too. She reminds Matt that Kristoff is dead, that it was Buck's doing, and it seems like they're losing ground in the fight with Fisk, and there might not be any hope. Daredevil is also worried on his side of things that Karen is losing her soul. I also kind of think they're using her as a parallel for what's happening with Heather Glenn, like two female characters that are descending into their own madness. Whereas they want you to be more hopeful with Karen Page, like ultimately Daredevil might be able to save her and she'll go back to the side of light, but Heather Glenn will only get worse and ultimately wind up actually killing someone. When we go back to Daredevil's army protesting at City Hall, it's gotten bigger, the protest has gotten bigger, and Powell outs the turncoat, killing him on Buck's orders, then tries to pin his death on another vigilante, giving the task force an excuse to open up in force against the actual protesters. So as they cross-cut all the different storylines across the rest of the episode, the protest storyline descends, making you feel like they're going to open fire on all the protesters pretty soon. Mr. Charles then goes to see the governor at the governor's mansion, implying that he tried to work out a deal with her at some point in the past and it did not go well, but saying that this time he's actually here to solve her Kingpin problem by getting rid of him. They're not going to come back to this storyline until next week's episode, so we'll see what Mr. Charles does to try and get rid of Kingpin. But right after this, Buck then tells Kingpin that the governor is pulling her support and is going to force him out of office, while Karen Page plays the video of the testimonies that she videotaped earlier this season, revealing everything about his prison camps to everybody that can see in New York City. So basically, the end of the episode is all-out chaos. Angela is also there with Soledad. People are starting to get beaten by the task force. They're about to open fire. It looks like Powell also has Karen Page dead to rights at the end of the episode too. But wouldn't it be convenient if Bullseye winds up helping her out with the task force because he hates the task force, and it also kind of seems like he gets off a little bit by pissing off Karen Page and Daredevil as much as possible. So him saving her life would also probably piss her off even more. Kingpin then goes into his torture basement to stare at Rabbit in a snowstorm, like the emptiness of his soul staring back at him, like Vanessa said in an earlier episode. We get that great gunslinger standoff between him and Daredevil where he tries to talk him into a bargain. Kingpin, I've come to bargain. basically telling him to leave New York City and never come back, and they'll lay off. The really cool way where they have Daredevil's horns appear on Kingpin's bald head is also based on original comic book arc from the era that they're adapting for the season Devil's Reign. They kind of make it seem like everything that they've been doing the past couple of seasons has been their own selfish desire for control and battling against each other. Like, it hasn't really been about saving the city or making things better. It's really just been about me versus you.
Imagine if we'd never met.
But it's all too much for Kingpin to handle. He is empty now without Vanessa. He's too deep in his rage. So they fight his first rematch with him since the season 3 finale. So you can let me know which fight you think is better, this fight or the season 3 fight. Really, the main difference between the two fights is this one is just in a much smaller self-contained area than the season 3 fight was. Kingpin also winds up destroying Rabbit in a snowstorm with Daredevil's body. He's genuinely torn up over it, make all the puns possible, and tries to taunt Daredevil with the knowledge that he'll never be able to get rid of him unless he kills him. So this is meant to be a comp back to Karen Page and Bullseye. What is going to happen if Daredevil does not kill him? Kingpin will just keep coming back. He'll find a way to keep coming back. But because of his no-kill rule, he is not going to kill him. So this is how you wind up with some Kingpin stuff in season 3. Generally felt like a pretty great episode, but it feels like they did wait till like the very end of the season to start doing like the real crazy stuff. There've been a couple solid episodes so far, but it did feel like it took them a while to actually get things going. Now you gotta do, Marvel, is just step on the gas between now and the end of season 3. Like, we have all the Defenders coming back next season, so just lay on the gas. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, or you have questions about the Defenders coming back, just post them in the comments below. My full episode 7 video will post next week after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. I'm still working on my Invincible finale video and my Boys Season 5 Episode 4 video, so those will post as quickly as possible. Just be sure to check my channel back in the next several hours. Everybody click here for those episodes. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other Daredevil Born Again episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.